Good morning. So as I continue to prep for upcoming peace session in 2 weeks, Saturday the 23rd. Sorry, I want to raise this camera. I don't know if you're getting the top of my head or not. I'm just going to put it up there. Sorry if that makes you sick. Okay. I want to talk about theme gaming versus. Okay, so instead of writing story blocks, or instead of preparing the story segments, instead of linear gaming, instead of, and again, I don't like the term railroading because it's just difficult not to generally see linear gaming, right? Players move from point A to point B to piece here, piece there, ends up here, etc. Again, not necessarily railroading. It just tends to be linear gaming. So railroading is such a negative connotation. However, we all know what railroading is when the GM just will not allow you to pursue your choices, right? We know what that is, right? That is indeed railroading. That is that is a situation in which you're stuck and you're going to do what it in order. But most gaming is linear, right? We go from point A to point B to point C, etc. We may or may not encounter certain things. We may or may not see certain things, etc. And of course, theme gaming, for me, is kind of what I've been trying to do for years. But I would use open world concepts, sandbox type concepts, and I would kind of prepare scenarios with an idea of what theme, which is where, in a way, naming sessions would come from. Especially when I post actual play recordings or something, or we go live, I try to give the players a teaser in private, or I'd give them a teaser in the Facebook group, or I'd give them a teaser in conversation, and it would be more or less a theme. So, but what I mean by theme gaming, for instance, and again, I'm not going to give anything away about what I'm doing with Peace, but I will be running Peace more or less as a theme. I'm starting them in a write-up. I mean, it's a fairly, unfortunately, long text wall. It's a page and a half of traditional 8x10 text of how they are, where they're at, and what is transpired and what is transpiring. So it's an info dump out of session, so we can hit the ground running when we launch, and they'll all know kind of what's been going on, who the situation is, and then of course we'll get to know their characters as we play. Hopefully there'll be a little pre-session talk about what connects the characters, right? They could literally be strangers in this particular scenario because I put them in a gigantic mass exodus caravan. So they could have just gotten to know each other on this 10 days. Okay, so I have this set up. So, but as an example of theme gaming, for instance, versus naive narrator, which is how we're writing Dark Age of Man to be a naive narrator. So we set a world, we set a kind of a boundaries of what's happening, etc. We might give a hint as to some of the flavor of what's happening around them in the village or the world. And there's historical, there's a times table, but then it's utterly wide open for the most part. We roll a few random seeds that the players can bump into or encounter. Those could ping pong them or direct them, or they could take hold of them, or they could ignore them. And so it's really free-form gaming. Well, theme gaming, for me, is I go into the prep thinking that this needs to be about confusion. This needs to be about recognizing truth from fiction. This needs to be about recognizing moral dilemmas, whatever the case may be, whatever my theme might kind of be, that I'm going to use or show up throughout as a way of challenging or putting things in front of the player, right? So theme gaming can also include, for me, I'm trying to give examples without spoiling what I'm prepping here. Theme gaming, Stonebakers was a prime example. I did a huge dungeon crawl, one-off dungeon crawl. I had 7 people, I think, come to that. I purposely told everybody no video. That was disconcerting for Ivan. I know that he prefers the video, but I wanted it to be in the dark. I wanted everybody to be listening. I wanted everybody to be in the dark of Stonebanger, right? Stonebanger, and Stonebanger was about nightmares, and it was about the process of a curse and this haunted, massive underground city that was now ruined. And they had to basically try to traverse through Stonebangers, but to find a pathway through the mountains. So they were there to actually navigate from point A through the mountains to the other side of the mountains. That was the goal of the expedition. But they encountered a curse that was infecting their sleep, and it was a curse that was showing them images of the potential issues they needed to resolve. And so there was the theme of darkness, blindness. There was the theme of I wanted them to feel claustrophobic. I wanted them to feel limited. And the great thing about the online space is I could do that by just turning off everybody's videos, right? At least for those who would listen or watch the thing. And I think for the most part, you only have yourself, your paper, you're sitting in a room alone. You can't look at the faces of the other people. It was a way of segregating the players. I used online media to segregate the players from each other at the table as if they were challenged by their own internal dilemmas. Especially when they would fail saves and they would have nightmares. If they failed a save, they'd have a nightmare. That nightmare would either deliver them information or it would cause other problems, etc. So at Stonebangers, the theme was reality from supernatural fears, from personal fears, and there was a gist of claustrophobia. I wanted them to feel limited and narrow in scope. They couldn't tell the facial expressions of each other. They couldn't. Whether it worked or not, I don't know, but that was the reason I did it, and that was the experiment. And I think some liked it, some didn't. Some thought it was fun, some liked the whole adventure, some thought it was, so what? It doesn't make any difference. I mean, sometimes we use these devices to try to, have a thing, right? But that was the theme. The theme was they had a party and an expedition to achieve a goal, but en route they were in Stonebangers, and Stonebangers was an old dwarf city that was cursed and haunted, and they had to find that pathway through. And meanwhile, the themes were resolving the dead, resolving issues of the dead that were left behind cursed, and fear and anxiety, etc., etc. So whether it worked or not, you can't. We're not magicians, and we can't force those things. But the goal was to try to impart that. Now, I'm not going to do anything like that with Peace, but I will use theme gaming. In other words, it's not a linear, structured thing. You're not going to go from point A to point B to point C. You're not going to have necessarily 4 choices. I will have a theme. I will have certain stuff around them they'll interact with. I may even have a random seed chart just for things that can pop up or come around. And then the theme, I don't want to express here. I will put it upon them in session, and it will present itself generally very subtly and vague enough that it doesn't matter if they get it or not, but it's there. And then maybe later, as people reflect back, they connect the dots. They say, oh, I see there was this kind of thing. You don't have to demand they get it, and you don't have to demand it matters, and you don't have to, but I like it to have a theme. And then that theme can connect the dots for us. As Dale's always talking about what's so great about our random seed and our naive narrator gaming is I have 2 totally different encounters. But because while they're pursuing this encounter and it's got context, and I talk about context in gaming, context gaming is huge. What brings continuity to the session is whether these things can be tied together in context. Right? So we're looking for continuity even in naive narrator through narration description. We're asking players to take agency but recognize continuity. We're asking them to stay within the bounds of the continuity and the context. And when they do that, and all the pieces that are even other random encounters, they can fold right into that and begin to make sense. An example of this in Dark Age of Man last session was I had rolled two monks and a soldier camping. That's it. That's all I rolled. When they came across those 2 monks and the soldier camping, they decided they were the monks that escaped. They were the people that escaped from the priest hole before they found it. Yep, there it is. Continuity, context. They said it. Yeah, it's real. Sure, that's exactly who these guys are. And now we start together without contrivance to create an understanding of these characters, the situation, and the perspective of who are these monks, the soldier, where were you headed, why were you doing it? It cues them, it brings continuity for them so they can go, okay, I'm making sense of this, the players are making sense of this, the characters are making sense of this, and oh, by the way, now we have a broader, now this organic little seed is grown into a broader scene, and now the scene is, what were you guys doing? Why did you guys go? Well, they sent us because we thought you guys were lost, so they were sending us to do your job. totally makes sense. Everybody goes, oh yeah, of course, makes total sense. And it's not contrived. It comes up naturally because the players said, these are the guys that left the blah. Sure, that's okay. That works. And here's the thing. They have now a larger party to actually deal with any conflicts that arise along the journey, or they can divide and conquer as they chose to do. They told the soldier and one of the monks, travel down to Ed Coda, and warn them of these impending Vikings that were on the river coming toward them. Outrun the Vikings up floating down the river and warn that village. And so they were able to use those particular random NPC encounters as a way of communicating and saving Coda, right? Without having to actually change direction and chase down that particular thing. Or worse, living with the reality that they are dooming that village to a surprise attack. It was fantastic. This is naive narrator play. Well, we can have themes even in naive narrator. 2061 is all theme. 2061, the whole point of the post-apocalyptic setting I put Del in was utter theme. It didn't matter if he was the warden or not, or even if he survived as the warden, but there was a theme to the entire, and that theme became the continuity from session to session to session. The theme and the themes, right? So anyway, and therefore again, it gives us context. Themes give us context. Context allows us all to stay within the same aesthetic to create continuity, or to at least recognize continuity. And that's important, and I think it's something that more gamers should be thinking about. Theme gaming, context, continuity, and allow the players the freedom to be wrong and it not matter. Allow the players to be right and it not necessarily impact play. I think it's important that players are able to be right. I think it's important players can recognize and not always be in the dark. That it does reduce frustration. It might reduce some mystery, but there's always mystery because they don't truly know what's coming next. We don't, and if we're playing naive narrator, none of us know what's coming next. I don't know what's coming next. I don't know that Derek is going to say, yeah, and a Viking sees me. I'm literally backpedaling as GM, trying to say, well, how am I going to handle this? He's just invented an enemy seeing him. It was remarkable, and so I want to be as surprised as the players. I want to be a player as a GM too, right? I want to share in this experience, and that's why the new style that Del and I have been working on is very, very joyful. It's very liberating, and it's very relaxed for me. So anyway, but theme, for instance, our upcoming peace session will have a launch. It'll have a kind of an initial setup, which I've already provided. It'll have the next phase as to where this is leading. That'll set up a primary particular dilemma that they'll have to deal with, and then the rest of it is theme based and based on where they go with that information. So anyway, thanks for watching. Good day.